Revealed, 10 spine-chilling midnight shift horrors that will haunt your sleep forever. Sarah never imagined life would bring her to work the dreaded midnight shift at a gas station in the eerily quiet suburbs of Greenfield. When she was laid off from her job, desperation pulled her into the dark alley of odd hours and unsettling loneliness. The flickering neon sign outside cast shadows that danced like restless spirits. Every night, as she swept between dimly lit aisles filled with bizarre snacks, a bone-deep chill settled into her bones. On her third shift, she noticed him, an odd man loitering just beyond the light, his gaze two burning coals in the dark. A wave of dread crashed over her as it pierced her very core. Why was he staring like that? Just a late-night customer, she told herself, clenching her fists behind the counter. But that rational thought barely illuminated the fear swirling like smoke in her gut. As the shifts trudged on, peculiar events unfurled their ugly heads, static on the phone line always accompanied by a sinister silence, security cameras glitching with unnerving frequency. And her kids, they started whispering about the shadow man lurking outside their window, something that made her blood run cold. She brushed their fears aside, but deep down, her heart hammered a fearful rhythm. What if there was something sinister hiding behind their suburban facade? Hints of a once respected local businessman linked to a slew of unsolved disappearances buzzed in her mind like a debilitating swarm of flies. The safe haven she once thought Greyfield was, now felt like a coffin, closing in on her with every tick of the clock. The neighborhood she grew up in seemed to harbor secrets darker than she ever fathomed. Her mind spiraled down a rabbit hole of paranoia, images of disheveled men slipping between shadows tormenting her once peaceful sleep. Desperate to shield her kids, she called the local police, but they merely chuckled at her fears, dismissing her cries for help with rolling eyes. Just a busy mom, huh? Their eyes seemed to say. Panic twisted in Sarah's chest like a vice. If they wouldn't help, who would? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Under the oppressive weight of escalating terror, her children's innocent nighttime imaginings twisted grotesquely toward nightmare territory. Now they spoke of towering, gaunt figures, their hollow eyes boring into the heart of darkness outside their yard. Each morning, as Sarah glanced into their wide, error-stricken eyes, the notion that their nightmares could be true sent her spiraling deeper into fear that dug at her sanity like a ravenous beast. Driven by fright, she sifted through local records, uncovering stories from her childhood that she wished had remained buried. Neighborhood legends tied to the uncanny silence, whispers of disappearances lingered in the air. Just as the weight of knowledge threatened to crush her, her phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. Heart racing, a sick terror ripped through her. Had he been watching her all along? Each second felt like an eternity as she pulled back the curtain to glimpse outside. There, looming ominously below the fading gas station sign, she caught sight of a dark figure standing just out of reach. Panic surged through her, and she realized with a chill, what if the midnight horrors had come for her and her children? The figure stood unnaturally still, its shape melding with the darkness. Sarah's heart thudded violently against her ribs. She strained her eyes, hoping to make sense of the outline, but it was like staring into a void that knew her secrets. Just as fear threatened to swallow her whole, the figure shifted slightly, an ominous crackle of movement that set her skin prickling. "Mommy?" A small voice broke the oppressive silence. Her daughter, Lily, stood shivering at the door, eyes wide with fear. The sight anchored Sarah momentarily, a flicker of clarity cutting through the haze of terror. "What's wrong?" Lily's voice trembled as she clutched her blanket tight. "Stay inside, honey," Sarah whispered, her voice shaky, still glued to the figure outside. The moment was suspended in time, like a breath held back. Another soft rustle echoed, and the figure seemed to lean forward, sensing the small warmth of life within the gas station. Sarah instinctively stepped back, heart racing, as an icy chill washed over her. "Don't look, don't look," she repeated in her mind, each beat of her heart timed with a vision of Lily's bright smile fading into despair. The thought drove her forward. She grabbed the phone, glancing at the unreadable figure. With shaky hands, she dialed 911, both praying they would actually care this time and fearing they wouldn't believe her. The phone rang and rang, but no one answered. Static fizzled down the line, and dread tightened around her throat. The chill spread from her feet to her chest. The figure seemed to pulse, as if feeding off her panic. She felt trapped. Just as she was about to drop the phone, a loud crash reverberated through the gas station, causing her to jump. "Mom!" Lily's plea shattered the tension, and Sarah turned to see her daughter pointing toward the back of the store, eyes filled with terror. "He's inside." The world shrunk to that moment, a single horrifying realization they were not alone. Panic stormed through Sarah's veins as she turned back to the window. The figure now stood illuminated briefly by a flash of lightning, revealing a gaunt face twisted in a grotesque grin, eyes glinting madly as if enthralled by the chaos he had stirred. "No, no!" Sarah's breath quickened as she realized the door behind her was creaking slowly, painfully. It moved on its own, the very air thickening with an electric charge. She turned to her daughter. "Get in the front, now." Lily didn't hesitate. She darted towards the cashier desk, her small form barely making a sound. Sarah's eyes were glued to the doorway, a primal fight-or-flight instinct warring within her. Would he come for them? Was he even human anymore? The whispers in her mind formed a cacophony, drowning logic. As Lily ducked behind the cashier, Sarah grabbed the nearest item, a bottle of soda, and prepared to defend them both. Her whole body felt alive with dread, muscles taut and ready for whatever horrors awaited them. But the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed through the back aisle. "Mommy?" Lily whispered from her hiding spot, her voice laced with fear. It took everything in Sarah to keep her voice steady. "Stay quiet. Don't move." The footsteps grew louder, each thud resonating in the depths of Sarah's bones, her heart hammering louder than before. She wanted to scream, but terror held her throat tight. The shadow on the other side loomed closer as silence hung thick in the air, suffocating. The thing was coming. And as the world outside the gas station was swallowed by a sudden, unnatural darkness, she knew the nightmare had only just begun. What would she face next? Would her children survive the night? The darkness seemed to answer, a murmur on the wind, "Stay or leave, it's up to you." The footsteps stopped abruptly, the silence that followed louder than any sound Sarah had ever heard. It felt like the walls around her were closing in, squeezing out her breath. Her eyes darted to Lily, who was crouched low, her small body trembling, her face a mask of terror. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, suffocating them both. "Where is he?" Sarah thought frantically, heart pounding in her ears like a war drum. She crouched behind the counter, gripping the soda bottle so tightly it felt like it might shatter. Every nerve screamed for action, but every instinct screamed for stillness. Then came a soft scraping noise, like nails on linoleum, and Sarah winced at the sound. It came from the aisles, where the shadows stretched impossibly. The figure had not just entered the gas station, it had become part of its very fabric, lurking wherever light dared not touch. Mommy, Lily's voice barely broke the quiet, but it was a desperate plea suffused with fear. "Shoo," Sarah whispered sharply, eyeing the aisles warily. The soda bottle now felt like a fragile shield against an overwhelming evil. Suddenly, a shape darted across the aisle in her peripheral vision. Startled, Sarah's breath caught in her throat as her body tensed like a coiled spring. The figure was no longer at the back. It was darting between shelves, almost playful but with a grotesque urgency, as if it were toying with them. "Lily, stay down. Do not move," Sarah hissed, praying her daughter could hear the urgency beneath her whisper. But the figure paused, as if struck by her command. It turned its eyeless face towards them, a void where features should have been. Yet Sarah felt it was looking right into her soul, reading her every fear. "Mommy!" Lily whimpered softly, instinctively reaching out from her hiding spot. The figure shifted, its head cocking slightly, an animal sensing the faintest quiver of its prey. "Don't! Stay back!" Sarah cried out, but it was too late. The figure lunged forward, almost gliding, a flash of movement too quick for her eyes to fully register. Sarah surged to her feet, holding the soda bottle like a weapon, mind racing with panic-fueled adrenaline. With an inhuman screech, the figure breached the space between them. Sarah swung wildly, the plastic bottle colliding with something cold and hard. The figure recoiled, and she saw its grin twist into a snarl, mouth contorting in ways she could never fathom. "Run!" Sarah shouted, instincts taking over as she shoved aside the cashier desk and launched towards Lily, who was frozen in fear. Lily snapped out of her trance, eyes wide and terrified. She followed her mother's lead, scrambling to her feet and bolting toward the exit. But the door wouldn't budge. It had jammed, a cruel twist of fate. The gas station clock ticked impossibly louder than before, each second a countdown. Sarah threw her shoulder against the door, pushing harder, panic bubbling over as the screeches from behind them grew louder and more desperate. "Mommy! What's happening?" Lily cried, her voice cracking with the weight of despair. "I don't know." Sarah gasped, fighting with everything she had against that relentless door. The shadows loomed larger now, twisting up towards the ceiling, growing, reaching like spindly fingers grasping for the light. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Sarah saw movement. A jagged silhouette materialized in the shadows. It paused, crouched low, then lunged towards her, and in that moment, daylight streamed from behind it, bright and blinding. Just as the creature lunged, Sarah whipped around, preparing to shield Lily, heart racing. "Get ready, run on the count of 3. She shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins as hope teetered on the brink of despair. But before they could act, the world around them fell into silence once more, an unsettling breach between moments, the kind that promised something was waiting in the wings. Would they escape, or were they mere toys in a malevolent game? As the edges of darkness crept closer, she knew the answer would come soon. The night was far from over, and the true horror of their plight was still unfolding. The tension hung thick in the stale air as Sarah faced the doorway, every muscle in her body taut as a bowstring. A heartbeat drummed in her ears, drowning out everything else. Behind her, the creature seemed to pause, as if savoring the moment, its hunger palpable, a suffocating fog wrapping around them both. 3-2, Sarah whispered, forcing the words through clenched teeth. But just as she was about to shout 1, the front window shattered with a bone-rattling crash. Shards of glass exploded into the room, cascading like deadly rain. Sarah instinctively turned to shield Lily, her heart hammering as she realized the daylight was not a blessing but a betrayal. It revealed the creature in stark clarity. It was closer now, and the absence of eyes made its gaze feel even more intrusive. The snarl that twisted its mouth seemed to echo the crunch of shattering glass. The creature moved like smoke, writhing through the shards of light, slipping between the fragments of their world and something far darker. "Run now!" she cried, adrenaline spurring her forward as the door groaned under her push. With a sudden lurch, the door cracked inches open, a dim beam of light spilling through. Hope flared momentarily. But her victory was short-lived. The creature surged, too fast, sweeping forward like a wave crashing against them. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, eyes wide with fear, a pure, instinctual cry that ripped through Sarah's heart. "Don't look back!" Sarah shouted, forcing her daughter forward. She could feel the choking dread behind them, nipping at her heels. As they barreled through the door, Sarah stumbled onto the asphalt, the chilling night air hitting her like a physical blow. The gas station stood silent and eerie behind them, a haunting silhouette aglow under the streetlights. There was no one else around. Just the shadows of distant trees, swaying ominously in the wind. "Where do we go?" Lily panted, her small hand clutched tightly in Sarah's. "Just away, we have to keep running." They dashed towards the side of the building, hearts pounding in unison as they tore through the dark. The creature's screeches echoed through the night, a mix of rage and mocking laughter that sent chills skittering down Sarah's spine. It was a predator, playing with its prey. As they rounded the corner, the pavement suddenly felt damp beneath Sarah's feet, slick with what she feared was blood. Panic clawed at her throat. The world around them started to fade, colors dimming under the weight of the stifling darkness pressing against them. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily whimpered, her small voice barely cutting through the oppressive air. "I know. Just hold on." Sarah gasped, pulling Lily closer. They rushed down an alley, its walls closed tightly around them like a tomb. The darkness felt alive, whispering stories of things that should remain unseen. Sarah's eyes strained to pierce the murky black, the alley stretching out infinitely, with no end in sight. Another sound: whispers. Soft, hush whispers, swirling in the darkness like smoke. They followed the couple, getting louder, pushing against her thoughts. "Mommy, what are they saying?" Lily asked, pulling closer. I don't know. Just keep moving, don't listen." Sarah urged, glancing over her shoulder. What she saw made her blood run cold. The creature, the thing that wore a human shape, stood at the mouth of the alley, backlit by a streetlight, its grotesque form stark against the glow. It loomed, arms elongating, twisting unnaturally as if testing its boundaries. "What do you want from us?" Sarah yelled, voice cracking in desperation. And then it smiled again, the darkness behind it expanding, engulfing everything. She felt the walls of reality bend, the fear pulling her into its depths. Then, as if on cue, the whispers crescendoed into a horrific cacophony, drowning out all reason. "Run, Mommy!" Lily's voice pierced through the noise, raw and panicked. But as they turned to escape, Sarah saw them, a hazy collection of figures behind the creature in the shadows, their faces indistinguishable, eyes hollow and soulless. She could feel their intensity, 1,000 dreadful gazes boring into her back. "Keep going." They pushed deeper into the alley, uncertainty clawing at their hearts, but a sliver of despair tugged at the edges of Sarah's mind. How long could they run? The creature's laughter echoed around them, and for a brief instant, Sarah felt the ground beneath her start to tremble, a deep rumble, unnatural. And then she realized something: they weren't just being hunted. They were being drawn into something much worse. As they reached the alley's end, a horrifying thought struck her. What if this wasn't an escape at all? What if they were running toward their own fate, straight into the heart of darkness? The looming figures whispered louder, and her heart sank as she felt the terror inside her swell. "Mommy, it's coming." In that moment, the darkness surged forward, and the reality of their situation sank in as fright swallowed her whole. What awaited them beyond the alley opening twisted in her thoughts. Would they still escape the creature, or had it already sealed their fate? She grabbed Lily's hand tighter. "Run. We have to find the light." But the shadows raced ahead, eager and relentless, ready to swallow them whole. Where would they find refuge? And would the night ever end? Sarah shoved Lily forward, adrenaline pumping through her veins, urging them to move faster. She couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness behind them was reaching out, scraping against her skin like icy fingers, eager to drag them back. Each echo of the creature's laughter echoed in her mind, a sinister reminder that they were far from safe. They stumbled into an opening at the end of the alley, the towering brick walls closing in behind them like a hungry maw. The bright glow of a flickering streetlight cast long shadows, but ahead lay the road, twisting into an eerie funnel of deep night. It looked empty, too still, and she yearned for the safety of ordinary sounds: cars humming, people laughing, life that felt normal. "Keep running, just keep going," Sarah urged, her voice sharp against the oppressive silence that pressed down on them. But just then, the whispers intensified, swirling around them, wrapping them in a shroud of fear. She could almost make out the words, a chorus of despair and longing that sank into her heart. Each breath tasted of dread, heavy and suffocating. "Mommy, I think I see someone," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper, eyes wide with terror. Sarah turned, heart sinking. A figure slowly emerged from the shadows, illuminated by the distant glow. It was a man, disheveled and disoriented, swaying slightly as if he had been waiting there for ages. His clothes were torn, and his eyes were wild, and fear gripped her at the sight of him. "Help us!" Sarah shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. The man's mouth moved, but the words that came out were garbled, twisted. He pointed toward the road, his face contorted with agony. "Don't go, it's not safe on the road. The darkness, it's hungry." What did he know? Her instincts screamed for her to turn and run, to heed this warning and flee like a hunted animal. But they needed help, and the shadow behind them loomed even larger. "Mommy!" Lily pulled at her hand. "We have to go. I can feel it." Sarah's heart raced as she glanced between the man and the distant road where the shadows gathered, thick and swirling, almost sentient. The air crackled around them, a palpable pulse of dread. "Stay close to me," she whispered fiercely to Lily, tugging her forward. But they hadn't made it 2 steps before the ground beneath them trembled again, a deep, reverberating pulse that felt wrong. The man lunged toward them, reaching out desperately. "No! You can't!" But he was cut off abruptly as something maw-like split the darkness. A gaping void opened behind him, and Sarah could see it now, a swirling mass of shadows taking shape, forming into a grotesque mouth that seemed to stretch impossibly wide. "Run!" Sarah screamed, pulling Lily with all her might. They dashed past the man, hearing him scream, a sound that twisted into nothing. The creature surged from the shadows, racing after them. They didn't dare look back. The air was thick, suffocating, and as they sprinted, something cold scraped against Sarah's leg, sending a shock up her spine. "They're everywhere!" Lily sobbed, her breathing quickening with each footfall. "What are you talking about?" Sarah gasped, pushing herself forward, energy draining from every pore. "Shadows, people coming for us." Sarah didn't know who or what Lily meant, but she could feel it too, could sense the weight of countless hollow gazes stalking them from the edges of sight. It was as if the dark had come alive, eager hands grasping for a taste of fear. "Just a little further," Sarah panted, urging them toward a faint light that flickered in the distance. As they neared it, hope flared in Sarah's chest. It was a small cafe, its windows glowing invitingly. But just as relief began to wash over her, an ear-piercing shriek ripped through the air. It was a sound that twisted her stomach, a chilling symphony of despair. Forcing her legs to move faster, Sarah shot forward, Lily's grip tightening. The entrance was only steps away. But with every stride, the darkness moved closer, encasing everything in its obsidian embrace. "Mommy, please!" Lily cried, pulling back slightly. In those last moments of sprinting, shadows slithered from the dark, wrapping around them, pulling. With a desperate cry, Sarah lunged forward, managing to yank open the cafe door just as the darkness lunged for her legs. They fell into the light together, but the moment was fleeting. The door slammed shut behind them, and the whispers escalated to a maddening roar. The warmth enveloped Sarah like a blanket, but the cafe was abandoned, tables overturned, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee. There was no one here. And high above, the shadows clawed at the glass windows, pressing in like a suffocating fog. What is happening?" Sarah gasped, the weight of reality crashing in. As she turned to gauge their surroundings, a horrific realization struck her. The figures crowding around the cafe, their faces, once obscured, were now all too clear. She recognized the emptiness in their eyes. They were trapped souls, victims of the shadows, their mouths opening to whisper her name. Sarah. Sarah. The chilling chorus of voices swelled, each pleading for release, each voice seeping dread into her very being. Mommy, I don't want to stay here. Her heart thundered in panic, and she knew this fight was far from over. How could they escape this place? And worse, what would happen if the shadows broke through? The realization crawled under her skin as the endless whispers began to resonate within her, promising to reveal secrets that no living person should ever know. But the cafe was their sanctuary for now, or was it? With a single heart-rending decision looming before her, Sarah felt time rush by, a heartbeat away from the darkness that drew ever nearer. What awaited them in this fragile moment of light? The shadows pulsed against the window, a dark tide crashing against glass, and Sarah felt the insistent whispers claw at her mind. You don't belong here. Let us in. What do we do, Mommy? Lily's voice trembled, resonating with the fear that coursed through the air. Sarah's heart sank. They were trapped, and a creeping despair rolled through her like fog, heavy and suffocating. Stay close, she whispered, her throat dry as bone. Scanning the cafe, she searched for anything to defend themselves, any weapon against the darkness that pressed closer. The tables were overturned, chairs lay strewn like discarded hopes. A coffee cup, chipped and stained, stood untouched, like a ghost of a moment that could have been normal. But normal was worlds away. With a sudden urgency, Sarah grabbed the cup, feeling its rough edge bite into her skin. It could be a distraction, or at least something to throw. She could feel the shadows reaching up the walls, stretching like hands eager to grab hold of them. Then she remembered the back door. The cafe had to have one, a way out if they were to escape this nightmare. We need to find another way out. Come on. Lily followed, her little feet pattering behind in a desperate rhythm. They slipped past the whispers, their intensity growing, swirling around them like a storm. Each step felt like an eternity, as if the shadows knew their intention and were preparing to thwart their every move. As they made their way through the shoved chairs and scattered tables, Sarah noticed a flickering light coming from a hallway at the cafe's rear. A glimmer of hope flared in her chest, but doubt quickly snuffed it out. What if it's a trap? Mommy, we can't stay here. They want us. Lily urged, her voice quaking. Sarah nodded, swallowing her fear. There was no other option, they had to try. They hurried toward the light, which grew brighter with each step. But as they reached the hallway, the air thickened with a malice she could almost touch. The sound of wind howled through the narrow passage, but it was unlike any wind Sarah had ever heard. It moaned and groaned, a strange lament that wrung at her heart. Do you hear that? She whispered, glancing over her shoulder. Lily nodded, pale-faced, clutching Sarah tighter. They edged closer to the source of light, and as they rounded a corner, they found a glimmering emergency exit sign hanging crookedly on the wall. But it pulsed ominously, like a heartbeat, steady but disconcerting. Can we go through there? Lily hesitated, her voice trembling. Sarah hesitated as well, her instincts warning her to turn back. We have to. We don't have a choice. With a deep breath, she pushed open the door, the cold metal handle biting into her palm. The moment it swung inward, a gust of frigid air swept over them. Ice prickled her skin, and the hallway beyond was cloaked in darkness so dense it seemed to absorb the light from the cafe. Mommy. No. Lily protested. It's okay, Sarah urged. We must keep moving. They stepped inside, and as the door clicked quietly behind them, the whispers fell silent. An eerie calm wrapped around them, but instead of comfort, it felt more like a predator holding its breath before the kill. The hallway stretched out like an old, abandoned tunnel, and with each step, the floor creaked beneath them, echoing loneliness. The light from the sign flickered behind them, threatening to go out. "Where do we go now?" Lily's voice was small and terrified. "Just keep walking. We'll find a way." Sarah's heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her veins as she strained to listen for any clue, any sign of life. But there was nothing. Only the suffocating weight of silence, mingled with the echo of their footsteps. 1, 2, 3. Then a low growl reverberated from the depths of the hallway, the sound creeping into Sarah's bones. "Did you hear that?" Lily whispered, and Sarah froze. "Stay behind me." The growl came again, deeper this time, more menacing, vibrating through the walls. Darkness seemed to ripple like water, and panic surged through Sarah as she fumbled to keep Lily close, the reality of their situation crashing in. With each heartbeat, the dread grew, and the shadows clung tighter, wrapping around them. What lay ahead? Just as fear threatened to overwhelm her, a glimmer caught her eye. A door, at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar, with light seeping through the gap. "What if it's worse?" Lily murmured, trembling. "We have to find out," Sarah breathed, edging forward. And just then, a figure stepped into the light beyond the door, silhouetted against the brightness. Another trapped soul? Or something worse? "Come here." It beckoned, voice smooth yet chilling. It was an invitation, but to what end? "Mommy. What do we do?" A decision loomed ahead as terror wrapped around them like chains, dragging them toward what could only be a greater darkness. Was it salvation, or another trap laid by the shadows? With their hearts pounding in unison, they took one tentative step toward the door, uncertainty hanging heavy in the air. What awaited them on the other side? The door creaked as they drew nearer. The light that seeped through the crack flickered uncertainly, casting long, writhing shadows that slithered along the walls. Sarah's heartbeat thudded in her ears, a drummer signaling the approach of doom. Exhaustion tugged at her limbs, but fear drove her forward. "Mommy, I don't want to go," Lily whispered, pulling back slightly. Her small face was pale, dark eyes wide with terror. "I know, sweetheart. I'm scared too," Sarah confessed, trying to infuse her voice with calmness she didn't feel. She put her hand on the brass knob, its coldness sending a chill up her spine. "Come here." The voice beyond the door was inviting, yet edged with something darker. "I can help you." A shiver crawled down Sarah's back. There was no way to know if this was the help they needed or another trap set by the very shadows they feared. But as the growl echoed ominously behind them, doubt began to dissipate, replaced by an instinct to survive. "Okay, on 3, we open the door. Ready?" Lily nodded, her breathing quickening, terror visibly shaking her little frame. 1, 2, 3. With a swift turn of the knob, the door swung open. They stepped into a room flooded with light, a stark contrast to the darkness they had just escaped. But the harsh brightness felt disorienting, and the shadowy figures lining the edges of the room watched them with hungry eyes. It looked like an old diner. Booths were lined up against the walls, their seats cracked and worn. Glasses shimmered on the counter, untouched like the remnants of a dream long gone. As they crossed the threshold, the cheerful hum of a jukebox suddenly filled the air, playing a haunting tune that seemed to resonate with their fear. "It's like a ghost," Lily murmured as she clutched her mother's hand tighter, her voice barely audible. "Stay close," Sarah said, scanning the eerie scene. The jukebox flickered, its light weaving through the dust particles like spirits dancing in the air. "Look," Lily pointed toward the sudden commotion at the far corner. A man sat in a booth, sunlight glinting off his sweat-drenched forehead. Relief flooded through Sarah, until she noticed the expression on his face, his eyes wide with horror, tears spilling down his cheeks. "Help us!" he croaked as he saw them, his words thick with desperation. "Get out of here!" There, before he could finish his warning, darkness poured from the corners of the room, thick and evil, snuffing out the light like a candle. Sarah gasped, pulling Lily close as the shadows undulated and twisted, rushing toward the trapped man. Mommy, what's happening? Lily whimpered, her grip tightening. I don't know. Sarah's heart raced as the specter of dread enveloped them. The whispers returned, louder now, clawing at her mind. Join us, you belong with us. In that moment, Sarah felt the pull of the shadows, seductive and chilling. It promised escape from her fear, from her pain. But at what cost? Run! She shouted, and they bolted back into the hallway, away from the terror consuming the diner. The darkness chased them, hot on their heels, growling like a pack of wolves. They dashed past the shadowed doorway they had just exited, desperately searching for signs of safety. The hallway twisted and turned, an endless maze that threatened to trap them in its grasp. Mommy, I can't, just a little further, she urged, her lungs burning. But then the growl morphed into laughter, horrid, echoing laughter that grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of voices. Each one a shadow, wrapping around Sarah's resolve, tugging at her sense of reality. Suddenly, a light flickered ahead, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a small door, slightly ajar, with a familiar warmth emanating from within. A stark contrast to the suffocating chill that wrapped around them. Mommy, we should go, Lily cried, but Sarah hesitated. What awaited them inside? Another trap? Or perhaps the darkness that had lured them in would finally end? Mommy, please. With pounding hearts, they made the decision. They stepped toward the door, the oppressive air thick with fear. Was there light beyond the darkness, or were they weaving further into an endless nightmare? Just stay close. Sarah steeled herself, shoving the door wider. Will they find sanctuary or fall deeper into the shadows? The moment they crossed the threshold, the world shifted once again. What awaited them on the other side? The small room erupted in a blinding light as Sarah and Lily stumbled through the door. The warmth wrapped around them like a forgotten embrace, but the comfort felt false. The air carried a sweet scent of cinnamon, reminiscent of baked goods wafting through a bustling kitchen. Yet something was undeniably wrong. They recoiled, taking tentative steps back as they surveyed their surroundings. Behind the counter stood a young woman, her face illuminated by the glow of a single hanging bulb. Her eyes were wide and gleaming with a manic excitement. Welcome, welcome, she chirped, her voice too lively for the eerie atmosphere. Who are you? Sarah asked, every instinct screaming for her to run. Just someone who loves to meet new friends. The woman laughed, but it echoed with an unnatural edge, scratching against Sarah's nerves. Lily clutched her mother's hand tighter, her eyes darting around the room. Faces peered from behind the kitchen doors that swung open and closed rhythmically, revealing more of the diner that was clearly beyond its time. They looked like hollow shells of people, grinning too widely, their laughter echoing hollowly against the walls. Can we help you? One called out, a gesture too enthusiastic, too eager. No! Sarah shouted. The wolves in the shadows behind were becoming their own whispers in her mind again, pulling her toward fear. We need to leave. Now. The woman's smile faded, morphing into a sinister grin. Leave? But you just got here. Lily started to tremble, her small frame vibrating with palpable fear. Mommy, the shadows, her voice cracked as she pointed wildly toward the diner's back, where the darkness converged once more. Like a malevolent tide, it slithered through the kitchen doors, closer and closer. I can't go back. I can't. Lily cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. You have to stay. You can't leave. The woman declared, her voice morphing into a hiss. If you go back, they'll take you. Dread seeped into Sarah's veins. Lily, listen to me. We have to escape. We can't let them take you. A sudden chill washed over the room as the shadows grew bolder, creeping along the walls, whispering of desires unfulfilled. Join us, their voices intertwined, a hypnotic melody that promised safety from the chaos outside. Sarah's breath quickened. Hold my hand, Lily, tight. They were losing their grip on sanity. If they succumbed to the temptation of the shadows, there'd be no coming back. As they turned to flee, the lady lunged forward with unnatural speed. You can't leave. You belong with us. Sarah grabbed Lily, dragging her toward the door. Heart pounding, she slammed her shoulder against it just as it began to close. Mommy! Lily screamed, the piercing sound lancing through the room. The door swung wide, driven by sheer desperation. They stumbled back into the hallway, but the shadows roared at their retreat, morphing into a physical embodiment of their deepest fears. Run! Sarah yelled as she felt their cold tendrils graze her skin, pulling her back. The hallway twisted violently, the familiar glow of the diner fading into a world painted with despair. The echoes of laughter twisted into anguished cries as they ran. Where do we go? Lily gasped, her eyes darting around the encroaching darkness, wild with fear. I don't know. Sarah cried, regret pooling in the pit of her stomach. She felt them at her heels, darker than a moonless night. Then, another door appeared, a heavy iron door set in the wall that seemed impervious to all the shadows swirling around them. Hope flickered, battling the suffocating panic engulfing them. Lily, we have to try it. Mommy, I'm scared. Me too, but we don't have a choice. In one swift motion, she shoved the iron handle down, and as it clicked, a malevolent wind howled through the hallway, shaking the walls. What lay behind the door? Was it a last chance for freedom, or a deeper descent into madness? Heart racing and mind clouded by fear, they stepped through, clutching to the last thread of hope. As they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fate. What awaited them in the darkness beyond? The darkness enveloped them instantly, a suffocating blanket that swallowed any flicker of light. Sarah grasped Lily's hand tighter, feeling the little girl's trembling body pressed against her. Panic bubbled within her. Where were they now? Had they escaped, or had they merely fallen deeper into the nightmare? Mommy? Lily whispered, her voice tiny and frail, barely making it through the oppressive silence. Shoo, it's okay, Sarah murmured, even though she wasn't sure. All she could hear was the echo of their breaths and the distant sound of pulsing whispers that slithered through the air. It felt as if the walls were alive, breathing softly around them. Suddenly, a soft glow broke through the darkness, revealing an empty room. It looked like a break room, familiar yet somehow distorted. Flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an eerie glow on faded posters clinging to the peeling walls. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and something sweet, like burnt sugar. What is this place? Lily asked, staring wide-eyed at the vacant seats and dented lockers. Stay close, Sarah instructed, feeling the adrenaline surge through her body. We need to find a way out. As they moved deeper into the room, hints of movement flickered at the edges of vision. Sarah's heart raced as shadows danced on the walls. She swung her head around, catching fleeting glimpses of twisted silhouettes disappearing into dark corners, mocking her. A soft giggle floated toward them, light but chilling. Welcome to our little slice of heaven. The voice was sing-song yet dripping with malice, sending shivers down Sarah's spine. She turned sharply to confront the source but found only darkness. Each step felt heavier as dread settled in. Something was waiting for them. They had narrowly escaped the diner, yet here they were again, their fate unwinding in tenebrous figures that seemed to pull closer without movement. Emily, one of the shadows, began to materialize. She had soft features and wild hair that framed a face graced with an unsettling grin. You're not lost, are you? You've come to join us. Join you? We just want to leave. Sarah snapped, clutching Lily tightly. But her words merged into the air, lost amid the faint whispers picking up intensity. Emily's laughter chimed again, brightening the gloom like ringing bells. No one ever leaves, dear. We wait until you understand. The diner is only the beginning. This is where the fun begins. Lily shrunk closer to her mother, grounding herself against the encroaching dread. Mommy. Stay here. Sarah insisted, stepping forward as the shadows began to swirl around the room, the air thickening and twisting. They breathed heavily, each whisper echoing their darkest fears. A figure burst forth from the shadows, an elderly man, eyes glistening with madness. You've never seen the truth, have you? They want you for a reason, he rasped. The shadows coiled around him like a cloak, vibrating with menacing energy. Get away from us. Sarah shouted, pulling Lily back. She felt the icy fingers of the shadows tugging at her, whispering promises of safety and escape that stung with seduction. What truth? Sarah said, heart hammering, desperate. A fanged grin spread across Emily's face. The truth about who you really are, what you really can be. As if responding to a silent command, the room froze, shadows merging seamlessly to form blurs of past and future within their walls, images of lives not lived, choices not made. Lily's hand slipped from Sarah's grasp, drawn forward. Mommy, I hear them, don't. Lily, come back. Sarah lunged forward, her scream reverberating through the chamber. She reached for her daughter, but the shadows yanked fiercely, trying to pry them apart. In that moment, everything shifted. The air stilled, and a low rumble filled the room. A hollow voice, unmistakably sinister, whispered, "What will you sacrifice to save her?" Time froze. Could she face the shadows? Could she endure what hid in the depths? Lily! She cried, panic gripping her heart. The shadows hissed around her, ready to consume. What choice would Sarah make? The walls echoed, but the shadowy figures waited, hungry. What lay ahead in that darkness was not just a choice, but a revelation. The true terror had just begun. Could she find a way to reclaim her daughter, or would the shadows finally claim them both? The shadows pulsed around them, a living, breathing entity, swirling and thrumming with hungry whispers. Sarah felt the chill wash over her, icy tendrils reaching out, trying to entwine her heart in fear and despair. Mommy! Lily's voice trembled, her little body teetering at the edge of the shadows. Sarah lunged forward, heart pounding, desperate to pull her daughter back. But the darkness spun faster, a vortex swirling with rage and desperation. Stay away from my daughter! Sarah roared, summoning every ounce of courage within her. You won't take her. I'll fight you to the end. With that, she pushed past the tendrils of blackness, reaching for Lily, whose wide eyes shone with terror, silently pleading for salvation. As Sarah grasped her small hand, an electric surge coursed through her, a protective fire ignited by a primal instinct deeper than fear. The shadows screamed, a chorus of anguish and rage, destabilizing around them. Their ominous whispers turned frantic. Join us or lose her. They hissed as they twisted and contorted, trying to pull Lily deeper into their maw. No! We need to leave. Sarah shouted, clenching Lily's hand tighter, urging her forward. The way to the door loomed ahead like a beacon, glimmering faintly against the chaos. Mommy, I'm scared. Lily pleaded, her voice small and lost against the shadows. Look at me. You're safe with me. I promise we'll escape together. The fierce declaration surged through Sarah like a wave, eclipsing her fears. The darkness seemed to recoil, momentarily hindered by the fierceness of a mother's love. They surged into the oncoming storm, the cacophony of shadows rising behind them. Every step felt like a battle against an undertow, but the light ahead glimmered, beckoning them to resist. As they reached the door, it swung open, revealing a blinding warmth. Sarah hesitated, the flickers of danger loomed like shadows threatening their lives once more. But there was something else, an inexplicable pull toward the light, whispering promises of hope and salvation. One glance back revealed the figures squirming in raw despair, their eyes hollowed and sorrowful. For a flicker of a moment, Sarah realized that these were all the souls who had been lost before them, people ensnared in darkness, now desperate and craving freedom. "Come with us!" the shadows cried, voices weaving together a symphony of lost lives. "You can save us if you stay." The flickering light illuminated their faces, each a story lost in the dark, a child, a mother, fathers forgotten, all pleading to be released. "Mommy, please! They need help!" Lily cried, innocence shining through like a beacon. "Lily!" Sarah's voice was firm, a tether pulling them back from the brink. "We can't help them like this. We need to stay together." With one final surge of will, she stepped into the light, pulling Lily along with her. The warmth enveloped them, and together they burst through, shattering the grip of darkness that sought to claim their souls. As the door shut behind them, the echoes of screams faded into silence. They breathed in the comforting warmth of the new realm, the oppressive shadows dwindling into memory. It felt like emerging from a nightmare, but the sweetness of dawn lingered in the air. "Are we safe now?" Lily asked, eyes tentative yet hopeful. "We are," Sarah whispered, kneeling before her daughter, brushing the hair from her face. They stood in an illuminated field, the air fresh and bright, surrounded by vibrant colors, a stark contrast from the oppressive dark they had fled. In that moment, Sarah understood. The shadows would always exist, woven into the fabric of their lives. But she realized now they weren't just a threat, they were echoes of fear, reminders of what could consume them, and a testament to the love that bound them together. "Let us go home," Sarah murmured, lifting Lily into her arms. The warmth of the sun pouring down felt like a promise, a balm for her weary soul. They turned away from the darkness, a silent resolution forging ahead. Across the field, the world beckoned, and together they walked toward the horizon, hand in hand, grounded in love, strengthened by their shadows. As they stepped forward, the sky erupted with brilliance, the shadows dissipated into the winds, their whispers finally quelled. They had chosen each other over despair. And somehow, that was more powerful than any darkness that dared to loom. What are you waiting for? This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to be part of this journey.